Welcome back. Well, economists are all but certain the Reserve Bank will hold rates at next week's meeting as inflation in Australia slows to its lowest level in a year and a half.
Let's bring in Chairman of Yellow Brick Road, Mark Bouris, for more now. Good morning, Mark.
Morning,
Thanks for joining us today. Now, break it all down for us. What does this mean?
Well, 4.9%. By the way, that's from July last year to the end of July this year in 2023. And I'm not surprised by, because if you go back in June last year, the monthly inflation rate was very, very high. So that's just dropped out.
Yeah.
So basically, we are trending in the right direction. Generally speaking, this would mean that the Reserve Bank will hold interest rates at the next meeting, which is next week.
OK, so it looks like there's a bunch of things that are coming down in price. Some of your big utilities aren't. So you have this kind of two-speed inflation economy at the moment. It'll be sustained, though, hopefully in that trajectory, which means interest rates may hold for a lot longer, possibly even go down by the end of the year or next year?
Well, the general money market view is that sometime next year from June on, the interest rate environment might start to be decreased. In other words, the Reserve Bank might reduce the rates. But that's going to depend on a hell of a lot of things. And we need to get inflation at somewhere between 2 and 3%, and it's trending in the right direction. But also they're going to be doing it if they can see the growth, Australia's growth, GDP, which is currently tracking below 1%. If they get nervous that that is going to be below zero, in other words, negative, then they definitely will start putting rates down.
That's interesting.
That's the number. The two things we've got to concentrate on now is not so much the inflation numbers, going in the right direction. The two things consumers need to concentrate on to get some sense of where things are going is, what does the unemployment number look like?
Yeah.
And the Reserve Bank wants to see it at 4.5%. It's currently 3.7. Going in the right direction. Plus, we want to see where GDP is. So is GDP still tracking really low? In other words, somewhere less than 3%, less than 2%? You're definitely going to expect to see a rate.
Well, with productivity levels, it's hard to imagine it going up any higher, is it?
Yeah, well, productivity level, you're right, Carl. Productivity is a big problem in this country, and productivity is going backwards.
OK, I could ask you questions all day, but that would be selfish. Let's start with the questions from the viewers right now. OK, we've got Peter, who says, is it worth buying a house at the moment, or are we going to go into recession and house prices tumble?
Well, house prices might not tumble, so we may go into a recession, but recessions in Australia is a technical term. It just means that gross domestic product, in other words, households are not spending much more money, or in fact are spending less money than they were in the period before. That doesn't necessarily follow that house prices will go down if that's what he's looking for, to buy cheap. It's very hard to arbitrage the market in property, because what happens is supply dries up, people stop selling. If unemployment went above 5%, then people start selling the houses, and then you're going to get a supply increase. House prices don't go down until supply increases substantially, and we're not at that point.
Delicate, though, isn't it?
And we know a lot of people are hurting who do have a mortgage at the moment. So one of the questions that we also have at the moment is, you touched on it before, just when we will likely see these rates fall.
Well, it's going to be sometime next year, but sometime later next year. The Reserve Bank's going to hold the rates where they are because they need to see sustainable reduction in inflation. They just don't want to hit 3%. They go, oh, OK, we'll take the brakes off. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to hold it because they don't want inflation to come back, whatever happens, especially under the new regime. So, and by the way, the new Reserve Bank governor-elect has recently said one of the things she's going to be thinking about, by the way, is climate control. And the Reserve Bank's now going to start thinking about how does climate control and or climate problems cause inflation, i.e. electricity. Supply, correct.
Yeah, renewables. Just quickly before we go, Hannah asked, are you aware of any grants available if you are on Centrelink and to purchase a home?
That's a good question. But well, first homeowners grant is obviously available, and in different states it's at different amounts, so you get different stamp duty concessions in the various states, so you need to check with your state government. But in terms of the federal government does give out home loans, and sometimes they'll guarantee up to 98% of the loan. So you can go and borrow an amount of money from your bank if you don't have the deposit. But again, that 98% usually is for a single parent, and you need to go into the websites that the government has, the federal government has, and find out if you qualify or not. But if she's asking, is there's going to be money granted to you? Basically not.
All right. Good to see you, Mark. Are you happy at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with where the inflation number's going, but the thing that's really getting to me, Carl, is that we got tomorrow night the Roosters in South.
Oh, that's what's really troubling
You
Mark's
guys
mind.
look all right.
JW Hatch is not there. That's a bother to me, but we'll do it. Don't worry.
We can explore that a bit later too.
I think the Roosters look all right. Good on you, mate. Thank you. There are rising concerns in the property market that misleading tactics like underquoting and rental bidding are causing both buyers and renters to miss out.
To discuss, we're now joined by Domain property editor Alice Stoltz. Alice, good to see you as always. Just how much underquoting are we actually seeing here?
Good morning, guys. Well, look, I think anecdotally most people would say it's pretty rampant, but unsurprisingly, though, the amount of complaints to fair trading is actually quite low. And I think that's because many consumers simply feel that it's basically the regulations are quite toothless. So underquoting actually happens, though, when a real estate agent deliberately advertises property for sale well below a reasonable price of what it will go for. And the reason they do it is to attract more buyers to that property and to lure them in and then kind of they usually end up missing out. You can see, though, in New South Wales, the fines this year to date there have been 43 fines issues. And really, when we go back over the past sort of few years, it hasn't changed that much at all. It's a similar story in Victoria, 48, 46 fines. So, guys, these are really tiny numbers given just how I think rampant most people feel it is.
It's 100% rampant. I don't think you can actually go and see an open house and get a guide that's anywhere near what the price is. I mean, I can't believe there aren't stricter rules around it and bigger penalties.
I think that's the issue, Carl. It's the lack of penalties in place. So people are deterred from complaining because basically they're not feeling that their complaint is heard or processed properly. Now, I guess one issue is in a rising market, price quoting is more challenging. Prices change very quickly. But what we're talking about here is these agents who are deliberately doing it with the intention of just to attract those bidders, just to attract those buyers to a property.
Which is futile because they can't afford it then. That's the problem. Is this affecting renters?
It is also affecting renters, Sarah, because what happens is with rent bidding. Now, rent bidding is illegal all over the country except for the Northern Territory. Now, when it comes to rent bidding, that's when agents are basically inviting people to invite bids to get a property. Now, again, this is completely improper and should not be encouraged at all. The loophole, though, is prospective tenants can actually offer a higher bid and potentially get given that property. So you can see the issue with the regulations here when it's not enough firm things in place to actually prevent it from happening and people finding workarounds. So look, these are the things you can do to make a complaint. Go to Fair Trade, make a complaint. Now, I do think people need to put pressure on fair trading because if we don't hear from people complaining, we're not going to have the reform needed. And it clearly does need a clean up.
Yeah, good advice there, Alice. Thank you.
Well said, Alice.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh, my goodness. Carl?
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?